China-United States trade war, 2018 present, reasons for the U.S. to implement tariff sanctions. In June 2016, as presidential candidate, Donald Trump vowed to cancel international trade deals and go on an offensive against Chinese economic practices, describing his promise as a reaction against a leadership class that worships globalism. Less than a year after he took office, the United States, European Union, and Japan agreed to work within the World Trade Organization, WTO, and other multilateral groups to eliminate unfair subsidies by countries, which create non-competitive conditions through state-owned enterprises, forced technology transfers and local content requirements. In April 2018, Trump denied that the dispute was actually a trade war, saying that war was lost many years ago by the foolish, or incompetent, people who represented the U.S. He added, "Now we have a trade deficit of $500 billion a year, with intellectual property, IP, theft of another $300 billion. We cannot let this continue." In January 2018, Trump said he wanted the United States to have a good relationship with China, but insisted that it treat the United States fairly. In his State of the Union address a few weeks later, he stated, "America has also finally turned the page on decades of unfair trade deals that sacrificed our prosperity and shipped away our companies, our jobs, and our nation's wealth. The era of economic surrender is over. From now on, we expect trading relationships to be fair and to be reciprocal. We will work to fix bad trade deals and negotiate new ones. And we will protect American workers and American intellectual property, through strong enforcement of our trade rules." A number of government and industry experts have offered their own rationales about why the tariffs are, or are not, appropriate. John Ferriola, the CEO and president of Nucor, America's largest steel producer and its largest metal recycler, claimed that tariffs were not unfair, but were simply leveling the playing field. He explained to TV host Jim Cramer that not only the European Union, but most countries in the world, have a 25% or greater VAT, value-added tax, on products going into their countries from the United States. So if we impose a 25% tariff, all we are doing is treating them exactly as they treat us. VAT, value-added tax, is a sales tax which is charged regardless of origin. Analyst Zachary Karabell claimed that the administration's desire to reject long-standing trade consensus in favor of a more nationalist approach will not succeed. A set of very public and punitive tariffs will not reverse what has already been transferred and will not do much to address the challenge of China today, which is no longer a manufacturing neophyte. Peter Navarro, White House Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy Director, gave a number of the administration's explanations for the tariffs. Among them are that they are purely defensive measures. He claims that the cumulative trillions of dollars Americans transfer overseas as a result of yearly deficits are then used by those countries to buy America's assets, as opposed to investing that money in the U.S. if we do as we're doing. Those trillions of dollars are in the hands of foreigners that they can then use to buy up America. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, after a 7-month investigation into China and intellectual property, explained that the value of the tariffs imposed was based on U.S. estimates of the actual economic damage caused by China's alleged IP theft and the forced transfer of technology to Chinese companies. In response, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang promised in March 2018 to henceforth protect the rights of foreigners investing in its economy, followed in April by an announcement by China that it would eliminate laws that required global automakers and shipbuilders to work through state-owned partners. President of China Xi Jinping reiterated those pledges, affirming a desire to increase imports, lower foreign ownership limits on manufacturing and expand protection to intellectual property, all central issues in Trump's complaints about their trade imbalance. Trump thanked Xi for his kind words on tariffs and automobile barriers and his enlightenment on intellectual property and technology transfers. "We will make great progress together," the president added. In August 2018, U.S. Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross said that at the end of the day, we have many more bullets than they do. They know it. Arguments that China unfairly controls imports. It is claimed that China has instituted an array of non-tariff barriers meant that some critical sectors of the Chinese economy remained relatively insulated from international competition. China has controlled imports by having different standards for private, foreign companies than for Chinese state-owned companies. Li Ji Brandstetter, a professor of economics and public policy at Carnegie Mellon University, listed some of the ways that China has misappropriated foreign technology. In a report issued March 22, 2018, the U.S. cited numerous instances of forced technology transfer and the failure of companies and the government to protect U.S. intellectual property from infringement or theft. Soon after the report came out, the U.S. announced plans to impose tariffs on up to $60 billion worth of Chinese exports to the United States and tighten the rules governing Chinese investment in the United States. Arguments that the WTO sanction mechanism is slow and ineffective. Amid doubts over the costs of U.S. comprehensive strength and leverage, alleged security implications, China's allegedly terrible human rights records, the Clinton administration in 2000 approved China's entry to the World Trade Organization. However, the U.S. claims that China has failed to fulfill its promise for reforms and requirements to be a WTO member, further claiming that flaws in the rules of the current trading system lets China limit imports with high tariffs and discriminatory regulations, subsidize exports with an inexpensive currency and generous credit through state-controlled banks, bully foreign investors, pirate Western intellectual property, which allegedly gives it trade advantages. The U.S. claims that the WTO for a long time didn't punish China's cheating. The view that China manipulates its currency for its own benefit in trade has been rebutted by U.S. organizations such as Cato Institute Trade Policy Studies fellow Daniel Pearson, National Taxpayers Union Policy, and Government Affairs Manager Clark Packard, entrepreneur and Forbes contributor Louis Woodhill, Henry Kaufman Professor of Financial Institutions at Columbia University Charles W. Calamiris, economist Ted Dolan, William L. Clayton Professor of International Economic Affairs at the Fletcher School, Tufts University Michael W. Klein, Harvard University Kennedy School of Government Professor Jeffrey Frankel, Bloomberg columnist William Pesek, Quartz reporter Gwen Guilford, The Wall Street Journal Digital Network Editor-in-Chief Randall W. Forsyth, United Courier Services, and China Learning Curve. President Trump has pushed the WTO, which expressly based on open, market-oriented policies and rooted in the principles of non-discrimination, market access, reciprocity, fairness and transparency, to reform, or he may pull the U.S. out as a member. Others, such as White House Council of Economic Advisers Chairman Kevin Hassett, has repeatedly urged the system consider to evict China out of the WTO as, we never really envisioned that a country would enter the WTO and then behave the way that China has. It's a new thing for the WTO to have a member that is misbehaving so much. Congress urges real and tough actions against China. Before the Trump administration takes concrete measures against China in late March 2018, Democratic leaders in both chambers of Congress have continuously criticized President Trump as being a total paper tiger and done virtually nothing on trade but study it. They press the president to focus more on China rather than allies and take real punishments such as fulfill his own campaign commitments to label China a currency manipulator on his first day in office and stop China from pressuring U.S. tech companies into giving up intellectual property rights. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said China has stolen millions of jobs and trillions of dollars, but administrations from both parties haven't been strong enough to fight back. Schumer, Senators Ron Wyden, Sherrod Brown and Joe Manchin among others vowed to roll out a China-related trade package that included creating a trade prosecutor to supplement the work of the U.S. Trade Representative. House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi said human rights are also integral to a fair trading relationship in countries like China that exploit prison labor, engage in other unfair labor practices, and stifle free speech and dissent. She also urged Trump must take a strong stand against unfair market barriers. Statement by both parties. The Trump administration said the tariffs were necessary to protect intellectual property of U.S. businesses, and to help reduce the U.S. trade deficit with China. China has criticized the U.S. restrictions of some of its sensitive high-technology products, their unfair treatments of China's market economy status, and unreasonable trade tariffs. Zhang Qingli, vice chairman of the Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, said that China never wants a trade war with anybody, not to mention the U.S., who has been a long-term strategic partner, but we also do not fear such a war. The U.S. side has disregarded a consensus with China after multiple rounds of consultations, insisting on waging a trade war against China and continuing to escalate it. While White House Deputy Press Secretary Lindsay Walters said that the goal of United States trade actions is not to harm China's economy or start a trade war, but to get China to follow through on allowing fair competition and stop their unfair trade practices that have been hurting the American workers for years. Since filing for consultations with the WTO, neither party has agreed on an overall solution, which has led to a continuing trade conflict and more discussions.